friends, this is Marina Shepelsky, and today we have a special guest with us. We are going to talk about what a bad marriage looks like for immigration. What are the symptoms? What are the signs? In case you're not recognizing, or maybe you are recognizing, but we're going to put some terms, some names to what you're going through to tell you you're not alone and help you how to figure out how to leave this bad marriage, this bad situation. We have with us today a special guest, my friend Ina Revutsky. She's a board certified psychiatric nurse practitioner. She works with patients to diagnose, treat, and identify mental health problems. And a lot of these problems arise at home when you're married to a person who calls you bad names, insults you, humiliates you, makes you cry, puts you down, when every day they make you feel less. Dr. Ina, I shouldn't call her doctor, she's a nurse practitioner. Ina Revutsky, she is an expert witness as a psychiatric expert who's conducted hundreds of evaluations of clients that I work with, that many of my colleagues work with, and tell the government, USCIS, sometimes consular processing, that this person, this human being, they had a good life, a normal life, then they were married to this guy or lady, and they had problems now. They got problems because they were married. She's an expert for a lot of our vawa abuse cases, asylum cases. So let's get into it. Ina, let's talk about what kinds of things do abusers say to their immigrant spouse or just to their spouse, men and women, that makes them fall in love.
So, at first, from my experience of conducting these assessments, everything is wonderful. The couple meets, they date, they go out. The partner is spontaneous, romantic, loving. And that's really the beginning. That's how people connect and they fall in love. And then they decide to get married. And somewhere along the lines of their marriage, things start going sour.
So step one, they're nice. They draw you in, right?
Yeah.
What happens after that? And that's like the next stage.
The next stage is really little small things or big things. For example, they may be cheating and they're caught in the conversations with other people. They are on the phone, and as soon as the spouse enters the room, they turn off the phone and the conversation. They have multiple passwords on their phone. Or, for example, they become abusive and aggressive at home, where they snap at what the person said or how they're dressed. Or the most important thing, really, what I see is that they try to isolate the person from the rest of the world, their family, their friends.
What does it mean to isolate? Because, a lot of our clients and people watching, English is not their first language. So some of these words that mean to us something, professionals, might not mean anything to them. What does it mean when you say they try to isolate? Like, how do they isolate someone?
They just prohibit them from being in contact with people that are close to them. So, for example, if a partner has a mom or a dad or sisters or friends that still live overseas and they use their language to speak on the phone, let's say an American spouse will say, I don't want you talking to your mom in your language. Or I don't like your friends that come and you talk to them in the foreign language. So they start planting little seeds where you feel uncomfortable having a relationship with someone who you're used to being close with. And it could be your parents, it could be your children, it could be your friends, it could be your brothers or sisters. So that's one of the ways that an abuser isolates. They separate the partner from having communication with people that they're close with.
So it's a sign of bad things to come. It's a sign of abuse. If your husband or your wife says, don't be friends with so and so, because they know so and so is the kind of person that will tell you the truth and say, hey, Joe, or hey, Maria, your husband is an abuser. This is very concerning what he's doing to you. They say, don't be friends with so and so. Don't be friends with your mom and dad. Don't talk to your mom and dad. Don't talk to your cousin. I don't want to go see your relatives. Have your parents not call you anymore. Don't talk to your children from your prior marriage. And they really get to make your life difficult when you do. Like, so if you do say, still call your relatives, still talk to your friend, they make your life hell. They start to call you names. They don't necessarily like physically abuse you. And for VAWA, you don't need physical. It's enough that you talk about how the person made you feel, right? It's enough that you say, okay, they restricted me financially. They keep all your credit card. I had a woman, the husband took all of her credit cards away. And every time they had a fight, he would take them away. Then he would give them to her, then he would take them away. He took her car keys away. He gave them to her when she was being good, and he took them away when she was being bad. Never hit her, never raised a finger at her, never choked her or anything like that. What about sexual stuff, Ina? Let's talk about this. Because some people feel like if they're married, they have to do whatever their wife or their husband wants in bed. Is that true?
It's true. I come across it in my assessments.
No, it's
Again,
not true that they have to do it. No, I'm asking, is it true that you have to do this in bed if you're married?
well, you don't. But what I was going to get to is in America, people are very open sexually. We have a lot of things that are acceptable in this culture that are not acceptable in other cultures. So I've done assessments on VAWA cases where a husband or a wife was making their partner really uncomfortable with things that they wanted them to do. And they used an excuse, well, you're married to me, you have to do what I'm asking you to do.
And
And you're,
enforce, right?
and if
Sometimes.
it, and I have a simple rule. It's your body, these are your rules. If it doesn't feel comfortable to you, you don't have to do it. You
And
don't
what
have
if they
to.
force you to do it?
Well, I
Is
mean,
it true?
it's okay to say no.
Right. So, but what if they force you to do it? Because sometimes I've had women clients and men clients where if they said no, their spouse still forced them to do things. What is that?
It's inappropriate. Know that it's not right for someone to cross your boundary. It's a physical boundary that someone crosses through.
So that's abuse both on the sexual, physical level. That's your, by the way, that is your physical abuse. If somebody is forcing you sexually to do things to yourself or they do things to you, that is physical abuse. Plus, that's emotional abuse.
Absolutely.
You know?
Or withholding sex or punishing you with sex.
Yeah.
If you're not behaving and a person won't be intimate with their partner, that's form of abuse, that's form of control, that's form of manipulation. All of these things are not okay in a marriage, in a partnership.
We had one woman who her husband was like openly cheating on her and gave her a sexually transmitted disease. And she kept saying to him, what the hell? Why are you cheating on me? And he would say, because you're not sexually satisfying me. It's your fault. You're not doing things in bed that I'm getting from other people. And you should be quiet about it. And then he was demanding that she have a baby with him when she was refusing to even, with sexually transmitted disease. She didn't want to even have any sexual relations with him. She wanted to treat herself. So, by the way, when somebody is forcing you to have kids and you don't want kids, that's also abuse. And people don't even know the word abuse. We talked about this before the show, Doctor. Not Doctor. Ina and I talked about this before the show. We said, oh, what is the word abuse to people, right? Some people don't even understand what that word means. But when somebody's treating you badly, that is abuse, and it's enough for immigration. It's enough, right?
And that's one thing that people question. They're like, is my case bad enough? Am I treated bad enough? Do I have enough evidence?
That's
And that's
that's most of my questions and consultations. Most
exactly.
are, well, she hasn't had any sex with me, right? We had a case like this for like 16 years, but I can't leave because she blackmails me. I'll never see my kid again. I will never talk to my kid again. She takes all my money, but she never hit me. She never like threw anything at me. Am I being abused? Is this bad enough to do VAWA? Absolutely. Absolutely. It is bad enough. And you definitely need not just a lawyer on your side, you need a psychologist to do an evaluation. A psychiatric practical nurse is amazing at this because they actually work with patients in the psychiatric setting. And they can say, as an independent expert to the government, I don't know anything about this guy, but I talked to him and he has the symptoms of an abused spouse. And sometimes people are shocked at the diagnosis that they see on their own evaluation. They didn't know they had. Give us some of these diagnoses,
Well, the general diagnosis that everyone ends up with is obviously post traumatic stress, where people avoid situations or they have this residual stress after leaving an abusive relationship. So that's post traumatic stress. People end up being anxious. They're nervous, they're anxious, they can't sleep at night. That's insomnia. Some people are really withdrawn socially. They don't feel like interacting with other people. They feel hopeless about the future. They don't want to trust the next person that comes into their life. These are more of the symptoms of depression. Then I've seen people really turn on themselves and like develop these signs and symptoms of, let's say, picking their skin, ripping the hair out, like more of like it's again a symptom of anxiety, but people really go within and then outwardly present with these symptoms that are,
People just lose their hair for no reason. All of a sudden, your hair is falling out. I've seen people gain a lot of weight
yeah,
or lose a lot of weight. And
yeah,
they're not physically sick. So if you are experiencing any of this that we talk about, and I specifically want to give you these examples, and wants to give you examples, please recognize you are in an abusive relationship. This is dangerous for you, even if the person is not hitting you, punching you, or like, choking you, although many of our clients have that. Um, but you need to leave and you will win your green card on your own. And you don't need the spouse to cooperate, to sign anything, right? That's VAWA. VAWA
they
means
don't even know, right? The spouse is not even in the know about what you're discussing with the with the psychiatrist or with your attorney. They don't have to sign off on any paperwork.
it's highly confidential. It's highly confidential. They will never find out. And I've seen strange situations where, believe it or not, I work in Brooklyn and sometimes it's a small world. I helped one lady get a green card through an abuse petition with a guy. The guy, years later, because I've been in practice for 21 years now, years later, the guy came with another client. They wanted to file for a green card. And I didn't know if it's a conflict, whatever. I didn't feel comfortable. I sent them away. Then my friend represented them. And my friend said, remember that client you referred to me? She has a green card now, which means immigration doesn't even disclose it to the next spouse sometimes. And so unless it was something really bad and the person had like convictions for sexual assault or molestation or whatever, they never will find out. So don't worry about the safety of them. Okay. So we're getting to the point, but let's talk about, well, how do you get the nerve to leave this situation? It's really scary.
It
It's
is
very
really scary. It's really scary because the abusive relationship, as bad as it is, it creates some sort of a structure, and people are in the new country. They don't speak the language. They're not next to their family, and it's really scary, like you said, to leave. I think the first thing that you have to recognize is to really tell yourself that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. The resources are available to you. You're not going to be alone. You're not going to be without anything. I think the first thing is really to consult an attorney who can really lay out the plan of care, the plan of how and what is needed to apply. And you don't necessarily need police reports. You don't necessarily need, medical records to prove that you were in an abusive relationship. Very often people come for an assessment to me and then they have not really been anywhere else. So it's enough to share.
And we win those cases.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's enough to show you went to an expert and they recognize that you have a diagnosis, the signs of abuse directly related to your marriage. It's not just because, hey, this person is depressed. When the expertise puts together the fact that you were married to this guy or this lady, and now you have depression and you were normal before, healthy before, that's really important. And it
and
doesn't
that's
have to be like anything that someone will look at it and say, oh my God, oh, this is the end of the world. It can be just something very domestic, but if somebody is abusing you, that means they're calling you names every day. They're saying your culture is bad, your language is bad, you're an immigrant, that's bad. Everything about you, they don't like all of a sudden.
yep.
Right?
And the type of foods that you eat, the way you eat, like from certain cultures, I know it's customary to, for example, eat with your hands. So I've had.
Husband used to tell me that I breathe too loud. This is a true story. So now, years later, when I learned so much about this from Ina, from my cases, because I do this now for 20 years, I'm like, wow, he was a real abuser. He used to tell me I closed the door too loud and too aggressively. I breathe too loud. I raise my eyebrows in a way that annoys him. Everything about him, me, was bad. And he would constantly tell me about this. If this is something ridiculous, a lot of these cases are like that. But if you're living with someone who's constantly putting you down, you are going to start to have symptoms. And that's something that is important for vawa. When you describe your experience, it might be ridiculous. It might not be like he never hit me, he never pushed me, he didn't rape me, nothing like that. Although, by the way, a lot of our clients, they don't realize when somebody's forcing you to have sex against your will, that's rape, even if they're married to you. Your husband can rape you. Your wife can rape you even. If they're forcing you to be with other people, I've seen that too. That's rape, and it's also very bad. So people don't even realize sometimes that they're living in like a crime situation. Actually, that the person could go to you could go to the police and get them arrested, but you don't have to. This is the beautiful thing about vawa. You really don't need to be the judge and the jury. You just need to get the nerve to leave. How do people leave? Tell us from your experience, Ina.
If the situation is really bad, you get up and you leave and you go to a shelter. And in the shelter, again, the resources become available. I've done assessments to people who were in the shelter, and I've recommended.
But be afraid of a shelter, right? A shelter is not so bad. We had a lady from San Francisco who we talked her into going to the shelter.
Yeah.
And then when she went, she was so happy because not only was it really nice, they gave her own like hotel room that turned out to be the shelter. They were giving them a hotel room in a nice hotel, but they later helped her rent an apartment where she wasn't paying anything for a long time.
Yes.
They
So
gave
that's
her a free therapist for therapy because
Yeah.
Ina can do an assessment, but she usually sends people for therapy to a doctor,
Yeah.
It's not so bad. It's really
Yeah. I had actually a client from Texas, and they helped to get her driver's license. So there are a lot of different resources that are available. Like in New York City, they'll help you get an apartment.
ID. New York City, they'll help you get an ID even.
Yeah. So, if it's really bad, you just get up and leave.
And remember this very important thing. If you ask for help, people will give you help. You like this like a basic thing that people don't realize. If you sincerely ask for help, you go to a shelter, you ask your friends, your family. I've seen people do amazing things. They will fundraise money for someone to help them move out from an abusive husband. I've seen people collect money for like a funeral, not related to this story, but I'm just saying, when you just say, here's the story, we need help, people will help you 100% of the time. If you just think about that, that should give you the strength to leave. And finally, choose yourself. Say, okay, this is what I tell my clients. I'm not a doctor, but this is what I tell them. I'm like, look, remember when you were a little girl or boy, remember when you were a little boy, you had your mom, your dad, hopefully they loved you. Even if you didn't live with mom and dad, you lived with grandma and grandpa, they loved you, they kissed you goodnight, they raised you to be safe, to be happy, and you're letting some guy ruin this. Imagine what they would think if they knew their little boy would grow up at 37 years old and some woman would be like cutting him with scissors. I've seen terrible things that people do to each other. Or like forcing him to give all the money and not talk to the family. And they're like, yeah, it's pretty bad. My grandma would say, leave, don't stay there. I'm like, yeah, leave. Listen to that voice inside. The voice inside knows what's up. It knows, like, you have a strength beyond what you think. You have help beyond what you imagine. People will give you help. Just start, make the first step, and you will be okay. I promise you, you'll be okay. Nothing bad has ever happened to anyone who left an abusive marriage.
Exactly.
It's only good things from now on. So I want to end it on this note. Please, if you have a case and you're thinking of leaving, they won't cooperate. They say, I won't go to your marriage interview. I don't want you to get a green card. I don't want your kids to get a green card. There's help. There's this I-360 VAWA case. There's Dr. Ina, who will help you do an assessment, even though she's a nursing practitioner, not a full doctor. But she's amazing. Her evaluations help us win in court. She testifies in court. She can testify in your VAWA case, and you will win. And there's a whole new life for you out there. So please don't be scared. Your final words, Ina.
I think you said it all. Don't be scared. Choose yourself and know that there is a beautiful rainbow at the end of this path.
Yep. All right. I think on this note, we will end our today's live. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time. If you have questions for Ina or for myself, write them in the comments and we will get back to you. Our phone numbers and information are right on the bottom of your screen. Reach out and start your new, safe, good life without your bad marriage, without your abuser in it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.